Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this public review session for the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council's next regional transportation plan called Moving Forward. This evening, you will be hearing from me. My name is Jan Khan, and I'm an associate transportation analyst at NIMTEC, and I've been leading the development of this regional transportation plan. Normally, this presentation would have been given by Jerry Bogaz, our assistant director, but I think he got stopped by the storm. So he's still on the road, stuck in whatever traffic there is. This evening, again, you will be hearing from me and also a colleague of ours, Jessica Ortiz. So let's get started. What I'm going to do, first of all, is to let Jessica explain to you how we're going to use the platform this evening. Jessica.
Great. Thanks, Jan. Hi, everyone. I'll be the second voice you'll hear from throughout this presentation. I just wanted to walk everyone through the WebEx platform that we are using this evening. If you're accessing the meeting from your computer, the screen and the buttons will look very similar to the ones displayed on this presentation slide. They may be different depending on the devices you're using. There are two very important buttons to note. The first is the mute button. As you've already noticed, you have been placed on mute. This is to reduce the background noise and minimize any interruptions to the presentation. You will be muted throughout the entire presentation, and please stay on mute. The second button to note is the chat button. And today we will be collecting comments in two ways. The first is by using this chat button. Once you have selected the chat button, you can type your comments in the message window to the left. And I do want to note that all our comments will be recorded, and we will address these comments in the final plan. The second way we will be collecting comments is through the use of the Poll Everywhere software. We have placed question prompts throughout the presentation to collect your comments. To respond to these questions and prompts, please go to pollev.com/NIMTIC. We've just placed a link in the window to help you access these interactive polling questions much easier. Now that we've walked you through how to use Poll Everywhere, we are going to go through our first interactive poll. So please follow me to pollev.com/NIMTIC. And the first question of the night is, where are you participating from today? Now, this type of question is a mapping question. And so when you first see the question on your screen, what you can do is actually press on the location and a pin will be dropped. I see that somebody is participating from Queens, another participant is from Brooklyn, and I'll give a few more seconds for people to access the poll and respond to the question. Okay, so let's move on to the second question. We are interested to see how people found out about these public review sessions. So this is the question that we're asking on the screen. How did you find out about these public review sessions? And this is a multiple choice question, and you're able to respond once. If the response you selected isn't the response that you originally wanted, you can clear it and select again. So the options that we have here on the screen are meeting notice by email, meeting notice by mail, NIMTIC Notes, which is our quarterly NIMTIC newsletter, media release. I see somebody has selected that. We've done a number of social media posts on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Word of mouth, which is always a great way to spread the word about any meeting. And then we also acknowledge that there are other ways for people to find out about meetings. So there's another option. And so I'll give people a couple minutes to select how they found out about the public review sessions. And I see someone else has selected meeting a meeting notice by mail. So I'll go to the ground rules of the meeting. As I mentioned, everybody will be muted throughout the presentation. This is again to minimize the background noise and distractions. We will be using the Poll Everywhere software and the chat window to collect comments, and we'll address these comments in the final plan document. And of course, the meeting is being recorded for those who weren't able to attend tonight. And now I'll hand it back to Jan.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Next slide, please. Okay, the objectives, we just want to go over the objectives for this public review session. As I mentioned earlier, it's about NIMTEC's new plan, Plan 2050, or moving forward as we are calling it. And it's really to provide information about this regional transportation plan and the process that is associated with the plan, and one of the mandatory federal requirements, which is the congestion management process. We want to direct participants to additional information and documentation because everything is being done virtually, and the parts of the plan and including the executive summary are available for your review online using the links, using the link that is on the flyer, and it's been put up there in the chat box. We want to collect public commentary for formal response in the final plan document, because whatever comments we receive, we have to respond to in this instance, and it will also help to, finalize the document, the draft document. And then we want to direct participants to avenues for further commentary during the comment period, which started on June 28th and extends through July 27th. Next slide. To give you an idea of NIMTEC and the planning process, I think we want to direct your attention to a video that we developed really for this purpose. Right, Jessica?
Yep, I'm going to play the video now.
Welcome to NIMTEC, the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council. Established in 1982, NIMTIC is the metropolitan planning organization for New York City, Long Island, and the lower Hudson Valley. Our 10-county region includes the 5 boroughs of New York City, plus Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland counties, and is home to more than 12 million people. NIMTIC's principals include 9 voting members and 7 advisory members, comprised of 5 suburban county executives, 2 New York City commissioners, the New York State Transportation Commissioner, and the Chief Executive of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Advisory members include the New York State Commissioner of Environmental Conservation, the Chief Executives of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey Transit, and the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, and the local administrators of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Highway Administration, and the Federal Transit Administration. Federal legislation requires that metropolitan regions must have a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, to plan for and make decisions on the use of federal transportation funding. Approximately $10 to $15 billion of federal funding comes into the region during each 5-year funding period. NIMTIC ensures that existing and future spending for transportation projects and programs is based on a cooperative, comprehensive, and continuing planning process. The elected and appointed officials who comprise NIMTIC have a shared vision, recognizing that mobility, the ability of people and goods to move easily and safely to, from, and between locations, is crucial to the lives of everyone who resides in, works in, or visits within the NIMTIC planning region. Therefore, we aspire to ensure that the mobility provided reaches everyone in a sustainable, healthy, and equitable manner, to invest efficiently for these transportation needs, and to respond effectively to the transportation challenges of tomorrow. Moving forward is the next long-range regional transportation plan for the Nipmuc region. Updated every 4 years, the Regional Transportation Plan is a blueprint that helps identify the transportation needs in Nipmuc's planning area in order to guide the use of federal funding. Nipmuc's plan covers all modes of surface transportation, including highways, roads and bridges, streets, rail and bus transit, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, as well as freight and special needs transportation. Our region is facing difficult challenges. Despite that, looking to the future is as important as ever for the region's long-term vitality. Moving Forward proposes a regional vision that is built around 5 strategic goals. To provide a transportation system that ensures the safety and security of people and goods across all transportation uses and modes. To provide a transportation system that is maintained, operated, and coordinated to better enable reliable, easy, accessible, and seamless travel across the region. To provide a transportation system that efficiently serves today's population and plans for the growing number of residents, workers, and increasing amount of goods. To provide a transportation system that minimizes its impact on the environment, especially the effects of climate change. And to provide a transportation system that is resilient and can mitigate, adapt to, and respond to chronic and acute stresses and disruptions. As Nipmuc pursues these goals through our regional transportation planning process, the following guiding principles inform our planning. We will consider the needs of all users across Nipmuc's planning area as a whole in the planning process. We will make the best use of federal resources for the regional transportation system and increase them where practical, while leveraging local resources as efficiently and effectively as possible. We will monitor the performance of the regional transportation system as a means of prioritizing improvements and investments. We will support multi-agency approaches that enhance the integration of independently operated components of the regional transportation system. We will engage the public and community stakeholders. And we will harness technological advancements to improve our transportation system. People living in the Nipmuc region are very aware of how their transportation system works and where it needs improvement. What transportation improvements are important to you? What matters most to your community? Your input is critical as we continue planning for our region's transportation needs. So how can you get involved? Attend a public workshop or provide your thoughts through our website or social media channels. Visit our website to join our mailing list, register for a workshop, and more. So get involved. Together, we can keep our region moving forward.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed our little video and you have a better understanding of what this entity called Nipmuc is and a sense of the vision of the principles of Nipmuc through the guiding principles and the goals that were outlined in the video. So what is the Regional Transportation Plan, which we want to talk to you about this evening? The Regional Transportation Plan it's a federally mandated planning product that defines the region's long-term transportation needs over a minimum of 20-year time frame. In this case, it's more than 20 years for us because the horizon year for Plan 2050 is 2050. Because of the non-attainment area in which we're in, the federal government requires us to update the plan every 4 years. And it is really a blueprint that helps to guide federal funding on investments in the Nipmuc planning area, which the video described. And that's the 5 boroughs of New York City and the 5 suburban counties. And it's developed collaboratively with, with the members, the agencies, other stakeholders, and members of the public. The plan covers all modes of surface transportation. Whilst it describes some aspect of air transportation, we do not cover air transportation. It's rather focused on surface transportation. And it does so from a regional perspective, and that includes highways, streets, public transportation, bicycle and pedestrian or non-motorized transportation, and goods movement, and also human services transportation or specialized transportation, as some people may call it. In addition, it addresses key transportation activities such as operations and management of the transportation system, safety, security, and regional finances. To get to where we are right now, a lot of public outreach was done for the development of this draft plan. It was developed in part through an extensive virtual outreach program from June through September 2020. Because of the pandemic, we had to switch gears and go from what we would normally do, and that is in-person public outreach, to essentially virtual public outreach, where all our meetings were done virtually. The public outreach program included online regional workshops and on the use of an online engagement platform, online focus groups, which were directed at residents of communities of concern. Those were environmental justice and environmental justice communities especially, and users of specialized transportation services. We also use extensively social media advertising. Because of the size of our region, we worked with some local partner organizations to reach as many people as we could. And then we used another platform called POFISH to do a survey of 1,000 respondents. So now I'll talk a little bit about the moving forward context and future needs. The plan itself it's really a demand-based plan, and it's driven by the socio-economic and demographic forecast. And as you would know, the SED forecast metrics include population, employment, labor force, and households. Those are the metrics that this plan is focused on, or the metrics that provided an input into the modeling process that helped to drive the demand analysis for the plan. The metrics were forecasted in 5-year intervals to the plan horizon year, which again is 2050. The forecast geography covered 31 counties in the multi-state metropolitan region. And you would understand why this is done, because whilst NIMTEC is focused on the 5 boroughs of New York City and the 5 suburban counties specified in the video, our travel shed is much wider than that. So the SED forecast geography included New York City, Long Island, Lower and Mid Hudson Valley, Northern New Jersey, and Southwestern Connecticut. As you would expect, the current pandemic had an impact on the way we develop the forecast or the results of the forecast. The COVID-19 pandemic has significantly disrupted the SED trends in the short term. And I want to stress that the impact that we considered was in the short term for the pandemic. Adjustments were made to the forecast to reflect this short-term impact and the resulting economic uncertainty. But bear in mind that the primary purpose of the forecast is the long-term outlook, which is less susceptible to short-term volatility. yeah, we will take you to the website, which has some statistics that you will be looking at, sorry, when you review our plan. This is the 2017 forecast, 2050 forecast, and a comparison of, you know, the changes between 2017 and 2050. As you can see from these projections, household size will decrease over the plan period. There will be a fair increase in population size, and so too employment and the civilian labor force. When you go to the website, these details are all available there for you to look at them, you know, closer, and provide us with any comments that you may have on these forecasts. When we do our forecasting for our planning area and for the regional transportation plan, we also look at excuse me, trip making, which is the total daily trips that are made, and these include daily auto trips, daily transit trips, daily vehicle miles of travel, which is VMT, and daily vehicle hours of travel. And as you can see from this graphic, everything for the period 2019 to 2050, everything will be increasing, you know, in a fair amount. For example, total daily trips will increase by 9.7%, and VMT will increase by 10.6%. Transit trips will also increase, and so too will daily auto trips. As we're required to do, the plan also includes forecasts for freight, because obviously the plan is built around the movement of people and freight. And this is just a table showing you the tons that are currently being moved and that are projected to move over the period 2018 to 2045. Again, these details are available on the website. I just wanted to give you a flavor of the type of demand that this plan will experience over the period of now to 2050. And of course, you know, we need to look at things that will impact demand and change in our region. And we call these drivers of transformative change. And these include obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, the changes that are occurring in terms of personal mobility, the evolution of shared mobility, which is increasing here in the NIMTEC planning area, the pace of technological development, things like the impact of 3D printing, the impact of e-commerce and distribution innovations. You know, what's happening with people buying on Amazon instead of going to a brick and mortar store, for instance, and distributed manufacturing. That's actually the 3D printing. There are some large-scale disruptors which the plan also considers, and these include climate change and extreme weather events, energy transformation, changing demographics and lifestyle and work style expectations, and of course, changing land use patterns. And when you review the plan, you'll see how these are described and accounted for in moving forward. In terms of the impacts of transformative change, the things that we described earlier, what we're saying here is that it is likely that the impacts of transformative change and the plan's forecast will be somewhat muted during the first 10 years of the plan. And then beyond the initial 10-year period and onward through 2050, the impacts of transformational changes on transportation demand and supply are increasingly uncertain. And I believe, you will agree with that statement. And it is not yet possible to reasonably forecast when and how drivers of transformational change will mature. So I'll turn you over to Jessica, who will take you through these Paul Levy questions.
Great, thank you, Jan. So now we wanted to, along with providing space in the chat message board for any comments that you may have throughout the presentation, we're going to pause periodically and ask you all for comments on what you've just heard. And so what we're really looking for are any insights that you may have, any comments on the information that we presented, and anything you'd like to share from your perspective on the information that was presented. So our first question is if you have any comments on the scale of the growth forecast. And I'll give people a minute or two to provide those observations.
It can be a word, it can be a sentence, it could be a phrase, anything you want to put into the poll everywhere.
So I'm going to move on to the next question. Sorry about that. There we go. And so now we're asking for comments on the adjustments we made for COVID-19. And that's just acknowledging how the SED forecasts have changed in their predictions, and what Jan just went through in the previous slides. So as we mentioned, this could be something that came to mind while you were listening to how we've adjusted for COVID-19 for the plan. It could be through public outreach or the data that we presented and collected. But we just wanted to know any thoughts you had on these adjustments that we've made. And I'll give people a minute or two to write their thoughts. I also want to remind everyone that if you're not seeing the same question on your screen that's on the slide presentation, just refresh your browser, and that should bring you up to speed on the questions that we're asking. Okay, and so I'm going to move on to the next question. And so considering the drivers of transformative change, and those are, that's the COVID-19 pandemic that Jan went over in the slides, the personal mobility changes, e-commerce, distributed manufacturing, which is 3D printing, and the kind of evolution of technology. We just wanted to ask if you guys had any comments or observations on those drivers of transformative change. And so I'll give everyone a minute or two to type in their observations. And if any comment kind of strikes you while we're talking, please feel free to write your suggestions in these question prompts, but also on the message board.
Thanks, Jessica. We can move on now.
Okay, and so I'll hand it back to Jan.
So this next section of the presentation talks to what we plan to do in terms of the shared vision, the goals and objectives. Next slide, please. This slide tells you about the proposed shared vision for the regional mobility, and the video touched this in some ways. As it says, you know, the elected and appointed officials, which are really the county executives and the commissioners and so forth in New York City, who comprise the NIMTEC, recognize that mobility, the ability of people and goods to move easily and safely to, from, and between locations is crucial to the lives of everyone who resides in and works in or visits the NIMTEC planning area. And you know, these bullets are really key to the vision of the principles. And they say that, you know, we aspire to ensure that mobility provided reaches everyone in a sustainable, healthy, and equitable manner. That we will invest efficiently for these transportation needs, that we will respond effectively to the transportation challenges of tomorrow. Can you go back one, Jessica? Okay, thanks. So you know, these are the you know, the fundamental statements around which Plan 2050 or moving forward is built. And again, this is really the shared vision of the NIMTEC principles. Thanks. So as you heard from the video, this new plan moving forward is built around 5 proposed goals. And in short, they are safety and security, reliable and easy travel, planning for changing demand, reducing environmental impacts, and resiliency. And again, the shared vision identifies the 6 guiding principles where we need to consider the needs of all users, make the best use of federal resources, monitor performance, and you'll see, we'll talk more about that when we talk about how the objectives of the goals are going to be met, support multi-agency approaches to the work that we do in moving the plan forward, engage the public, and harness technological advancements.
So now we'll move on to an interactive poll that's a ranking exercise. So the next 2 questions will be these ranking questions, and what they actually ask you to do is number in your relative importance how important these 5 vision goals are. So the 5 vision goals, as Jan mentioned, are safety and security, reliable and easy travel, planning for changing demand, reducing environmental impacts, and resiliency. And you'll notice on your screen all of those vision goals outlined. And so what you can do is actually click on them and move them up or down depending on which ranking you want to give them. So I'll give everyone a minute or 2 to kind of determine what they feel is most an important ranking in terms of importance for them. And I just want to reiterate, if anybody who's joined a little bit late in the presentation, if you'd like to participate in the polling exercise, please visit pollev.com/NIMTIC. And I see somebody has participated in the polling exercise, in the ranking exercise. And the first is reliable and easy travel. Planning for changing demand is second. Third is safety and security. Fourth is reducing environmental impacts. And 5th is resiliency. And as you just saw, that'll shift depending on the number of people that are participating. So now safety and security has moved up to number 2. And so we'll move on to the next ranking question. And so the next ranking question just asks, how do you feel in relative importance? How do you rank the guiding principles that Jan just went over? And these are kind of a shortened version of those guiding principles that Jan walked us through, just so that everyone can see them and have a quick snapshot of each of these guiding principles. And then they are considering the needs of all users, the best use of federal resources, monitoring performance, supporting multi-agency approaches, engaging the public, and harnessing technological advancements. So I'll give everybody, I'll give everybody a minute or two to provide their input in this ranking exercise. And then I see considering the needs of all users is moved to first place. I see engaging the public has moved to second place, while considering the needs of all users has moved to, has stayed in first place. So I'll move on to the next question. And so this is just, again, an opportunity for members of the public to provide comment on anything that they've heard, anything with regards to the 5 vision goals and or the 6 guiding principles. And this could be a statement of how important they are to you, a word of how you feel about them, or just any general comments or observations about the 5 vision goals and our guiding principles in this portion of the presentation.
Whatever you want. It's okay. It's okay here. It's...
And so we'll give everybody a minute or two to provide their comments. And so again, I just want to remind everyone that if a thought sparks about this portion of the presentation, you can still write it in the chat message board, and those comments will be collected and recorded and addressed in the final plan document. So now I'll hand it back to Jan.
Great. Thank you very much, Jessica. I think I mentioned earlier that the way we handle the information in the plan, the emphasis is on the goals for the plan and the objectives, obviously, and how we will invest the monies that are available to achieve those goals and objectives. The way we set about to do that is that we have taken each one of the goals and developed a module for each one of them in the plan. And again, I'm hoping that you can take a look at those. So for each one of the 5 vision goals, Moving Forward presents the following information. We describe the vision goal, we talk about the related objectives, we try to describe the trends, the current conditions, and existing initiatives for that particular goal. Then we talk about the recommended strategies and actions that we need to take to achieve those goals. And I mentioned this earlier, this plan is somewhat performance driven, so we do have some performance metrics that we attach to each goal, which will allow us to achieve, the objectives of the plan in the, presently and in the near future and down the road. So the first goal is safety and security, and these are the 5 objectives of the safety and security goal. We want to ensure that investments in physical assets protect the safety of, among others, passengers in the freight system, promote safe streets and intersections, keep the transportation system secure from threats, coordinate safety management, training, and education across jurisdictional borders, and improve the safety and security of the system operations. These, I should have mentioned that these are the objectives that have been developed by the members. for each one of these goals. So for safety and security, these are some, and again, you know, this is just an overview of what is contained in the plan itself, and we would exhort you to go to the website and review each one of these goals in its entirety, so that you will have a better sense of what we're talking about here this evening. So some of the trends we looked at for safety and security include motor vehicle fatalities and serious injuries, non-motorized, same thing for non-motorized transportation, motorcycle fatalities and serious injuries, public transportation safety, and freight transportation safety. We talk in the plan, we try to describe the current conditions for motor vehicle crashes, pedestrian safety, micromobility, different types of safety for auto modes, and we also address the question of transportation security. And we also outline some existing initiatives. These are things that are currently in play, that have been implemented or are about to be implemented by the NIMTEC members. Some of the broadly, some of the recommended strategies and actions for safety and security include planning and research initiatives, data collection, and this is really key to addressing safety. Having good data does allow you to address safety in a meaningful way. Forecasting, performance assessment, how we're doing, recommendations from the planning process, and recommendations that come through programming, and that is through regional guidance programs and education and training programs. The web link that was on that slide will, will take you to the full description of the recommendation. And again, it's all part of the Plan Moving Forward website. For safety, the performance metrics which we will be looking at include the number of fatalities, and this is planning area-wide, the fatality rate, the number of serious injuries, serious injury rate, number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, and the number of public transportation fatalities, injuries, and safety events. And these are pretty much consistent with the what is required of us through the federal performance requirements.
And so now we'll move into the portion of the safety and security module where you can share any reactions you had to the information that Jan just shared. And again, this can be thoughts or comments or just your own perspective on what you feel safety and security should be in transportation. And so I'll give everybody a minute or two to respond. And so Jan also went through kind of like the objectives of the safety and security module, the performance metrics, as well as some initiatives under this module. If you have any other initiatives you feel should have been included and involved, or if you feel that something wasn't touched in the safety and security module, please feel free to share those as well. Okay, and if inspiration strikes while we moved on from this module, you can also put your comments in the chat message board. So I'll pass it back to Jan.
Thanks, Jessica. The second goal is And, whilst I'm saying first goal, second goal, and I'll say third, fourth, and fifth, we don't prioritize these goals. I'm just using first, second, and third as for reference. The second one I'll talk about is reliable and easy travel. And here you can see the objectives. There are 8 objectives, which include rebuilding and replacing and modernizing the assets for the transportation system across the NIMTEC planning area, improving first and last mile access. It also includes number 6, integration of freight modes and facilities. We look at one of the recommendation or the objectives is to invest in the collection and sharing of quality transportation data. And again, I can't stress enough the importance of data in transportation planning. And then equally important as the others is promoting equitable transportation and workplace access opportunities for all populations, regardless of age, ability, race, ethnicity, or income. That is really important to the NIMTEC principles. These are the recent trends, current conditions, and existing initiatives, which are described in moving forward under reliable and easy travel. And I wouldn't read these, but you can see them on the screen there. They're, for the trends and conditions, we look at the trends and conditions of roads and bridges, public transportation, non-motorized transportation. Again, we try to identify current risks, and this includes, as you are well aware of, an aging transportation system in this area. Funding could be a risk, safety and security of the system, climate change. And also, like the other first goal, we talk about existing initiatives, which include the members' asset management plans, highway and bridge programs, transit-specific programs, and freight programs. Some of the overarching recommended strategies and actions, again, include planning and research initiatives, data collection, important, planning process recommendations, and program recommendations, which, whilst they will look familiar to you because it's the same sort of strategies and actions we talked about in safety and security goal, there are many differences when you take a look at the details in the plan. And here are the performance metrics. They deal with the condition of pavements and bridges, and the condition of public transportation rolling stock, other equipment, and infrastructure.
And so now we'll just pause before we move on to the next vision goal. So we just want to get your reactions to the reliable and easy travel module. And so that could be commenting on any of the like current risks that Jan mentioned about aging transportation infrastructure, about climate change, the current risk of coordination and access, funding, as well as some of the performance metrics that you may have any reactions to, kind of like the pavement metrics or the travel metrics that were mentioned. And so I'll give people a minute or two to provide comments if they have any. We'd also be interested in hearing any comments about the objectives in this module, if they relate to you, if they're important to you, especially perhaps the last objective that touches upon making it reliable and easy transport for underrepresented groups. So. And you can always provide your comments in the chat message board. So now I'll hand it back over to Jan.
Thanks, Jessica. Before I, go on to this goal, I just want to reemphasize that, what we're trying to do here with these public review sessions is to give you a sense of what is in moving forward, the Plan 2050. But we would again encourage members of the public to visit the website the Plan Moving Forward website. Take a look at the information we have there in detail, and use there is a comment form that you can use to submit comments to us. So we know it's hard to get your head around some of this information now, but please, we want to encourage you to take a look at the Plan Moving Forward website and submit your comments using the comment form that is there. So the third goal is planning for changing demand, and these are the objectives, starting with investing in system capacity to satisfy demand and relieving overcrowding, emphasizing with an emphasis on the core markets and activity centers. And these are we have a fair amount of these in the NIMTEC planning area. Very important, expand the reach of the system to underserved communities and emerging markets, both for addressing passenger transportation as well as access to freight and goods services. Encourage walking and biking, transit-oriented development, complete streets, parking and curb management. And we say encourage here because many of these are already implemented or being implemented across our NIMTEC planning area by our member agencies. Modernizing the local freight networks, that's a very important issue that we would like to address. And then incorporate emerging and innovative transportation services and tools to make our network system more efficient. Like the other goals, these are the recent trends, current conditions and existing initiatives that we want to point out to you. And these include talking about trends in roadway congestion, goods movement, public transit, and non-motorized transportation, because, I mean, I'll state the obvious that looking at these trends will help us to address issues that exist and invest accordingly. So looking, and the same goes for current risk and conditions. In this case, it's, how demand is changing, the nature of the assets that we have for transportation in the planning area, looking at what is available for public transportation, the way people are choosing to travel now, and that's the shifting mode choice. Intermodal connections, important between different types of modes, and building local partnerships to ensure that things like proper intermodal connections do occur. And some of the existing initiatives include transit improvements. And there are a huge amount of improvements that are occurring either by the MTA or the transit systems that exist in the suburban counties. Implementation of complete streets. There is this thing we call coordinated development emphasis areas, and that tries to tie land. And if you look at Appendix 1 for moving forward, you will find these areas there. And what we strive to do here is to try to bring or tie land use and transportation planning together. Some of the existing initiatives include technological developments, transportation system management and operations, and that's things like intelligent transportation systems, the implementation of those, reviewing the congestion management process, and various freight initiatives that are being undertaken in the planning area as we speak. Recommended strategies and actions again include planning and research initiatives, planning process recommendations, and program recommendations, which include complete street programs, transit access programs, and shared mobility programs. The performance metrics that we will be looking at for this goal include vehicle miles traveled per capita, person hours of delay, public transportation system reliability, level of travel time reliability, travel time index, which tells you how much how much delay is occurring on the roadway, and truck travel time reliability also, which talks about. So as you can see from these metrics, many of them are going to tell us how reliable our transportation system is.
So we wanted to move on to just the pause before the next module, and wanted to ask if there were any comments on planning for changing demand. So as Gian mentioned, if you have any comments on the objectives, and that could be anything from your observation or a comment on reliable travel, on encouraging walking and biking, as well as any of the initiatives or recommendations for those initiatives, like complete streets. We want to hear it. We just are interested in any comments that you may have towards the plan and towards the document that we're sharing with you today. So I'll give people a minute or two to provide those comments. Yeah. And I just wanted to remind everyone who joined the meeting a little bit later while the presentation had already started to log into pollev.com/NMTIC to provide, to interact with us on this interactive polling activity. And so you can also provide your comments in the chat message board if a thought comes to you, if we've passed a module already. So now I'll hand it back to Jan.
Thanks again, Jessica. And this is the fourth goal, reducing environmental impact. And these are the objectives, which you can read from the screen. And they include encouraging alternatives to single occupancy vehicle trips. That it will not only improve the environment, but also reduce vehicle miles of travel, encourage low emissions alternatives to trucking, modernizing our fleets, efficiently managing limited roadway capacity, and this will, this is through transportation system management and operation type of initiatives, promoting responsible environmental stewardship, and addressing unequal impacts of transportation emissions on communities. These are some of the trends that are described under that goal, where we look at the criteria air pollutants that impact the NMTEC planning area. We look at greenhouse gases, and we look at vehicle miles of travel. Again, in terms of current conditions, we talk about the system characteristics, the existing system, vehicular congestion, mode choice, and so forth. And as you can see, in terms of existing initiatives, there's the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. We have the congestion management process. We have active transportation demand management program. There are strategic system enhancements that are occurring. The use of congestion mitigation and air quality improvement program funds. implementation of context-sensitive solutions, the implementation of complete streets, and the existing clean vehicles programs that are, you know, for example, New York City DOT is doing, and the New York City itself. These are some. We just wanted to highlight some trends here for greenhouse gases, and highlight the fact that the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, you know, it calls for economy-wide greenhouse gas emissions reductions from 1990 levels of 40% by 2030 and no less than 85% by 2050. So we just wanted to, you know, make you aware of that. Sorry, change next slide. And this slide essentially describes the again, you know, we didn't do this for the other goals, but we thought these would be interesting, or this would be interesting information for members of the public, just to highlight, you know, the current conditions for vehicular travel in our planning area versus other urbanized areas. And you can see from this that with our large population, you know, daily VMT is per capita is not so bad, but there is a fair amount of delay on the roadway system, because what the travel time index tells you is that 1.35, for example, is telling you that you will take 1.5 times roughly it will take you 1.5 times the amount of time to get from point A to point B. So, you know, the travel time index is fairly high in our planning area. And this should be no surprise to anyone. Transit ridership in our planning area or in our urbanized area is way above many of the or all of the other urbanized areas. And again, this should be of no surprise to anyone. Some of the recommended strategies and actions, again, we have planning and research initiatives, data collection, forecasting and performance assessment. And in terms of program recommendations, you know, this emphasizes some community planning programs, commuting alternative programs, the public messaging and marketing programs, the vehicular emissions program that is being undertaken by our various members, and innovative materials program. The performance metrics we'll be looking at for this particular goal and its objectives would be the criteria: air pollutant levels, greenhouse gas inventory levels, vehicle miles of travel, and vehicle hours of the day. The last two of which obviously will, you know, have impacts on the environment.
So we wanted to take another pause and grab any comments related to this reducing environmental impact module. So we wanted to ask any questions that we wanted to gather any comments you may have on the information that Jan presented, and that could be anything from the initiatives that he stated or the objectives for this module, or even the performance metrics. And so I know that this is a very broad overview of the plan, and this is not the only time that you can comment, but we'd like to hear your comments now if you have them. I just want to note that the comment period is open until July 27th, and on the plan website, there's a comment form that you can also provide your comments to us. So I'll give it a minute or two for anybody who's just typing out their comment.
We can move on, Jessica.
Okay, I'll hand it back to you, Jan.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to do a time check. It's now 8:12. We wouldn't take you beyond 8:30, and we really do appreciate your patience. The last goal is resiliency. The objectives are to protect and fortify major transportation assets, to continue to invest in sea level rise and climate change risk analyses for transportation assets, improving coordination on emergency and long-term responses, and then enhancing increasing travel options and redundancies. These are some of the trends, conditions, current conditions, and existing initiatives, which we describe in moving forward under this goal and its affiliated objectives. And the trends we describe include environmental and climate stressors. Important to understand what these are: human stressors and public health emergencies. We talk about current conditions, which include, again, the environmental and climate stressors, some of the vulnerability assessments that we have undertaken through Federal Highway Administration and the FTA in the past. Talk a bit about the impact of public health emergencies. And some of the initiatives we describe include the New York State Community Risk Reduction Resiliency Act, the New York City's waterfront revitalization program, the HUD Rebuild by Design program, MTA's program of Fix and Fortify, cybersecurity and counterterrorism, and public health programs. Again, this is just a broad overview of those initiatives, and the details are in the plan. The recommended strategies and actions include some of, similar ones to the other goals, which include, research initiatives, planning and research initiative, data collection, planning process recommendations, and program recommendations. The performance metrics that we'll be looking at include the number of vulnerable lane miles, bridges, and culvert trailways, separated bus facilities, the percent that has been hardened, the number of vulnerable transit and freight track miles, vulnerable transit yard and facilities, and the percentage hardened.
So now we'll take a pause to ask for any comments on the resiliency module. And that could be anything from the trends or the current conditions, how any observations or perspectives about those current conditions of the existing public health emergency, or any human stressors, as well as environmental and land use stressors, or any of the metrics that Jan has mentioned. So to keep us on track, I'll just let everybody know that we're going to move on, but you can continue to provide your comments in the chat message board if you have any. So Jan, back to you.
Okay. As you would expect, an important part of developing a transportation planning is the ability to pay for the plan. So very quickly, there's a whole chapter on this in the plan. So we will go over just some quick aspects of our ability to pay for the plan. The federal regulations require that the plan be fiscally constrained, and that is, costs. We must have the revenues to cover costs, and that also we should look at if there is, just in case there is a shortfall, we should look at additional financing strategies for the implementation of the plan. It's in terms of cost and revenue categories, what we look at in terms of paying for the plan would be operations and maintenance of the system, preserving the system, and improving the system, which is system enhancement. These graphics tell you about the potential costs of operating the system, and it does that by agency. And then there's an overall graphic there that tells you that the cost of maintaining the system through 2050 could be about $861 billion. That's billion with a B. And it is anticipated that we will have the revenues to cover the costs of operation and maintenance of the transportation system in the NIMTEC planning area. In terms of system preservation and enhancement costs, you know, again, these graphics tell you that, you know, pavements will cost about $33 billion to preserve, bridges about $53 billion, and transit about $663 billion, most of which belongs to the MTA. So the total cost of system preservation and enhancement would be around $750 billion. This graphic provides you with an idea of the estimated funds that you know, we are projecting that we will have to implement the plan. It's highly leveraged. The plan is based on the federal dollars. So as you can see here, the federal amount we estimate that we will get is about $159 billion, and between state and local, it will be about $645 billion. The proposed additional financing strategies that we include in the plan, that we have in the plan, include public-private partnerships, value capture, debt financing, discretionary federal funding, and cordon pricing.
And so now we wanted to ask if you guys had any comments or observations on the cost forecast and the system enhancements that Jan just went over. And so I'll give everybody a minute. I know that we're close to the hour, so I'll move us along, but you can again share your comments in the chat message board or in the comment form on the project webpage.
We can move along, Jessica. The plan also includes quite a few special elements, and these special elements form the appendices to the plan, and they include next slide, yeah, the pedestrian and bicycle element, coordinated public transit, human services, transportation plan, that's specialized transportation, the regional freight element, environmental justice and Title VI assessment, and environmental mitigation new consultation. And again, please take a look at the website. These are key plan appendices, amongst others, and they describe, you know, in detail what the NIMTEC planning area will be doing in terms of, or the members will be doing in terms of these key elements, such as pedestrian and bicycle, freight, and so forth. An important aspect of the plan is obviously the projects, proposals, and studies, you know, that we are proposing to have in place to implement all of the objectives, the goals that we have to meet the objectives of those goals. And these projects, programs, and studies are in Appendix 1 of the plan. And Jessica, if you could just take us quickly to the projects, programs, and studies page, just to give members on the WebEx a flavor of what we have. So these are the constrained projects, that is projects for which funding is available. There's also vision projects and region-wide projects. When you go to this page, you'll see a listing of the projects that is also reflected in the map above the listing. And if you hover over any one of the triangles or the dots or something, you'll see a description of the projects. So this is a key element of our plan, having projects in place as part of the implementation and achieving the goals and objectives of the plan. We have a few minutes more, so I'll very quickly go over the congestion management process status report. The congestion management process is one of the 2 mandatory processes that we have to conduct as a metropolitan planning organization. As this slide says, we are, by federal definition, a transportation management area. Therefore, we must systematically forecast traffic congestion. We must produce specific performance measurements to identify levels of congestion and prepare a program to reduce the congestion. And our CMP, our congestion management process, fulfill all of these requirements. Each time we do the regional transportation plan, we update this process and produce a new CMP, or congestion management process status report. The current one, like all others, provides an overview of the CMP and the methodology. It presents the results of the most recent CMP analysis and forecast, and it describes the strategies that the members commit to in addressing current and forecasted levels of congestion. These are some of the performance metrics. In addition to the metrics that I described earlier as part of the regional transportation plan itself, there are other metrics also in the CMP, and these are some of them. They kind of overlap in some instances, but some of these are sort of different. Things such as average travel speed, lane miles of congestion, person hours of delay. These are described in the CMP process in addition to what is in the plan. Here we do a peer region comparisons. And again, you saw this, the table on the left you saw earlier, where we have a huge population. We don't have as much VMT as some of the other metropolitan areas, but our delay is greater. These are some of the forecasted conditions contained in the CMP, and on vehicle mile travel and the daily vehicle hours of delay. We also do for anyone who's interested, and for our members too, of course, we do county and or borough analysis and forecast, where we look at each one of our counties in New York City and also our suburban counties, and try to analyze the congestion that is occurring there, and doing also forecasts for congestion in the future. The CMP status report also contains strategies and enhancements and the type of investments that the region plans to make to address congestion.
And so now this is one of the last opportunities in this presentation to provide any comments through the polling activity. This is our last question of the polling activity, and it's just a general question asking anybody who if they have any additional comments on the information presented today. I just want to reiterate that we have a comment period for the plan document that's open until July 27th, and you can review the plan document because this is a very brief overview of the plan. There's so much more on the plan website. And then once you have any comments that you formulated, you can visit the comment page on the plan website and provide your specific comments. You can also provide any final comments in the chat message board for the presentation today. So now I'll hand it back to Jan.
Thanks. In terms of our schedule moving forward, next slide, please. You know, this graphic shows that we started the comment period on June 28th, the formal comment period for the draft plan in August. You know, we have to develop a draft final plan, which our Program Finance and Administration Committee will, along with the CMP status report, will recommend to the full council for adoption on September 9th this year, because the plan has to be in place by the 1st of October. I think that was the last slide, and I really want to thank everyone who's had the patience to stay with us this evening for this public review session. It's a lot of information that we throw at you in a short space of time, and that tells you how intense moving forward Plan 2050 is. And lastly, I would like to say that we really would want you to go to the website, Plan Moving Forward website, and look at the plan and provide us with any comments you may have. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for your time this evening. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.